Good morning, everybody. So, Fort Worth is over, and Bucky discard is still the not best deck, is it? At this point, I think it's really hard to call Bucky the best deck. Overwhelmingly, it keeps topping these events. But what was it? Botchum didn't make the finals. The 10K didn't make the finals. And now, lo and behold, another DLC goes, and it didn't make the finals. So, why is Bucky still considered the best deck? I don't know that it is. I think it has the highest ceiling. I think that when this deck hits, it's the best deck in the room. I just think that it also has an issue of when it doesn't hit, it's very difficult to pilot successfully. I'm not going to say you can't win if you don't see Bucky. I'm going to say that it becomes much, much harder, and the skill curve of this deck gets insane. And I'm saying for that reason, we keep seeing Ruby Amethyst, a much more consistent deck that is just good at what it does all of the time, or almost all the time, or decks like Steel Song that seem to always pop up in the mid to late part of a format and just start to take over. It's a big reason why, for set championships, I put Steel Song in my top 4 decks. I had Blue Steel knockdown, not Sisu, so I was wrong on which deck would fall out of the top 4. But I had Steel Song getting into the top 4. And I don't think that's really a claim that many people had seen coming. So when we look at Fort Worth's top 64, there was 29 Bucky decks. And I know the initial one said 30 and 7 Ruby Amethyst, but it was corrected on Ink decks. There was 8 Ruby Amethyst, 29 Buckies. I went through and double counted just to be sure. There were 10 Blue Steel decks. I didn't go through all of them yet to see which ones played wheel, which ones didn't. So again, old graphic, but that's it. We had 10 Blue Steel decks. Like we said, 8 Ruby Amethyst, 7 Steel Songs, 3 Popsicle Controls. We had 2 Lemon Limes. We had 2 Sisus, 1 Hyper Aggro, 1 Steel Fossa, and 1 Ruby Fossa. I had a prediction video on this. I think I said 23 Buckies with 16 Ruby Amethysts, where if Ruby Amethyst did what I needed them to do and had 8 more, we'd take those 8 away. We'd almost be right on the head on there. I did have Blue Steel at 7. They had 10, so they overperformed. So Bucky and Blue Steel both overperformed my expectations, which, if Bucky's overperforming, it makes perfect sense that Blue Steel's going to overperform. It's the best counter to Bucky in the format. Ruby Amethyst really let me down. However, they did win the event, so I guess they made up for it. Steel Song also overperforming. I had them at 4. We had Sisu. I just put the red-blue decks, Sisu Popsicle Control. I actually said it that way too, like whatever way you're playing the deck. I had at 5. There was 5 of them. We had the 2 Lemon Limes. I said keep an eye out for Aggro. Keep an eye out for Mufasa. Tempo though. Tempo players, where you at? I had faith in you guys. I had faith, and Jafar too. Tempo and Jafar. Just kidding, I had 1 Jafar. I said 1 Jafar is going to make a run. It's going to be the Perdita of this one. Well, Steel Song was the Perdita of this one. That Steel Song list was spicy. We have both top Steel Song lists to go over. We have the Ruby Amethyst list to go over. And we have a couple other deck profiles to go over, including Zach Biven's sing-along Lemon Lime deck. So this is the overall breakdown. Top 4 was 2 Steel Songs, Ruby Amethyst, and Bucky, which we said 2 Bucky, 1 Song, 1 Ruby Amethyst. Almost got it right. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into some of those lists, right? So we're going to start it out with Zach Biven's list. And we have what? We have, making sure we're on the right one. So he played 4 Diablo and 2 Kitas. Makes sense. I've seen some of these lists playing the Cinderella as a singer on 1 drop at 2 instead of Kita, but the Shift Kita, just being able to keep your ink cost down, makes a lot of sense. The Sir Hiss, it can not only hit aggro or evasive cards, it has 3 attacks, so it can trade with other characters really well. The Ursula 2 drop, it's a discard card, you're going to play it. Aerial Spectacular Singer, being able to search out those, or not search, but look at the top 4 and grab a song for you. Diablo is insane. Prince John, we saw it in a feature match. I forget exactly when it was with Bivens, but against, was it Blue Steel and the other player hit the wheel? Whole New World did. And then after inking, playing, and using the Fishbone Quill, had 4 cards left in hand, and we saw Bivens just make him discard all 4 cards. It was insane. It was awesome to watch. Shout outs to him for another great deck build. 4 Muses, being able to bounce characters then as you play songs, and you play some songs that can lower their attack so that it helps work out that way. 3 Cricky, the boost is really nice, the 3 lore is really nice, and it's a pretty good stat line overall. And then Kita, again, being able to get that board wipe off your Under the Sea, and the one of Lucifer that we've been seeing these decks play all set championship format, just as another good discard outlet. So the song choices, we have Painting the Roses Red. This is one of those songs that, at least no matter what, it draws you a card. It's inkable and it draws you a card at the bare minimum. In addition to that, you can pick 2 characters to lose an attack, and, well, it works out for your Muses, it works out for your Under the Sea, and it helps out with what the deck's trying to do. Sudden Chill makes sense, Bare Necessities makes a lot of sense, and Bruno makes a lot of sense. We're trying to find songs to make this deck work, to make it hit. A fun thing that I was seeing him do was play a song, use Muses to bounce his own aerial, because it doesn't say, like your opponent's card, you return your aerial, and then you can replay your aerial and just keep getting the songs off of it. And it's just a great way to use resources. Just, again, Muses bouncing your own aerial so that you can play it again. Go ahead and search for another song. It was crazy how many times he was recycling this card, and it just kept up so much advantage. Under the Sea, again, uninkable 8 cost, but you can sing it together, and anything with 2 or less attack, bottom of the deck, effectively a board wipe when paired with that Kita that gives everything -3. Lastly, 4, You Have Forgotten Me's. Really like this card. This card feels so good after a Prince John on a 3, even if you have to play it. They discard 2, you draw 2. It feels insane, the value you get off of this, and just overall, card is really, really strong. So the deck comes in at about $213, and I think that's pretty good, right? Like, who's going to complain about that? Let's move on to Ruby Sapphire. I picked this list. This was, hopefully I don't butcher the name, and as a former Yu-Gi-Oh player myself, Ding Kang Pham, he came from Yu-Gi-Oh very recently and has been doing absolutely great on the Lorcana scene. If you know Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not a surprise at all. He's a very, very innovative player. He is how many times do we say innovated? He has fine-tuned decks such as Sprite and Melfi, which were some of the meta decks, and really just piloted them amazingly. But at the end of the day, the prize support in Lorcana, so much better than what we get in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's a big reason we're seeing some of those players coming on over here. For me, it was the love of the game. It was Disney, and it's so much easier to teach my kids this game. But anyway, we see no Sisu here, which is something I was actually considering doing, mostly because I don't own Sisus. I'm like, there's got to be a way. The deck was already insane. It was already good before Sisu. It's got to be good without Sisu. I love the 3 Queen of Hearts in there. We'll go through the list, I guess, first. So actions, we got the Develop Your Brains. Makes sense, being able to look at 2, add 1. I use this card in my Sapphire Emerald list that I used to win in Ursula this past weekend. That video is going to be up on the channel tomorrow as well. I know I said today, but this video was more important to get out. 4 Brawls. You're playing Ruby. You're going to play Brawls. The card is just absolutely bonkers. Your items, we played 12. The Popsicle, the Vitalispheres, and for those who don't know this one, you can pay 1 ink. Banish this item. Chosen character gains Rush and +2. It helps you deal with threats much quicker. And in a deck that's a bit slower, it puts in work. 3 Fishbone Quills and 1 Great Stone Dragons. Makes sense because the ramping in the deck is usually more off of the 1 jump and how far I'll go, and less on the Fishbone Quill because you lose your hand from it. 2 Lucky Dimes closing out those games is just very, very strong. Bringing us to the songs, those 1 jumps, the how fars, and the 4B prepareds. These are the standard. And the spice, he played 1 Dig a Little Deeper. Look at the top 7 cards, put 2 into your hand. What more to say about it? That just sounds so strong, right? Again, and not to be a broken record, but I was thinking about playing this card, but at the end of the day, in Emerald, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I don't have those, this being like the mid-late game card, I don't have Medusa, Maui, Maleficent Dragon to try to get to in that late game. So for Ruby Sapphire, this card makes much more sense. In Emerald Sapphire, you got to get a little more in the early game, and I don't think this card ended up making quite as much sense, but I loved seeing it here in the Ruby build. Queen of Hearts, absolutely. Like, rush characters between your Maui, your Queen of Hearts, heck, even Goofy. Like, rush characters in this deck are crazy because your opponents get greedy. They know what deck you're on. They don't expect this. I've seen so many Bucky players quest a Bucky on turn 2 against this matchup, and I'm like, you shouldn't have did that. And then, lo and behold, boom, Queen of Hearts comes down, and people just are not ready for it. Bucky players, be smarter. Your Bucky getting that one extra lore is not worth losing the match because of it. One Judy Hopps to take out items, even your own if you need to draw a card. Grammatala, Hiram, these are just cards for consistency. Hercules, being able to one-shot a Queen's Castle, very strong. Being uninkable, obviously, it's going to be, not quite as good as Maui. So we see 3 Mauis, 1 Hercules, but again, being able to one-shot a castle, whereas Maui plus anything takes out castle, but sometimes you don't have anything and you need that Hercules, or you have to quest with your Hiram to draw into that Hercules to be able to take out the castle. Madame Medusa, no Lady Tremaines. I do like Tremaine, but I get it why you don't play it. Hitting the Tragic Hero, hitting the Robin Hood, hitting the Diablo. Medusa answers almost everything in the game that is a threat. Tremaine just feels like a little bit better follow-up to be prepared. 4 Tamatoas, again, not surprising whatsoever. And then 3 Maleficent Dragons. We got, 3 other deck lists we're going to go through. Let's go ahead and look at the winning deck, Ruby Amethyst. Is there anything spicy here? 4 Chernabog, 4 Broom. Okay, I actually said Broom over Chernabog, not Broom and Chernabog. But so many people, you can't play Broom, only play 4. Don't play more than 4 1-drops. You can't do that. Look at the 10K list. He only played 4. Do that. You can't keep looking in the past. You got to see the results, think about how they're going to affect the game, and move forward from there. So we see in this list, sorry that I have to recheck names, Edshu ended up winning over the Steel Song deck, but we see 8 1-drops, and I think they were realizing that the deck was slowing down too much and losing to decks that it should not lose to because it was missing that 1-drop play. Then we see Flynn and Snake for 2, Fox and Sorceress on 3, Sisu also there, so you can hit that Frenemy, Sisu, Castle playline. Goat and Rabbit on 4, just pretty standard there. Then you have your Maui, and only playing 2 Medusas, no Tremaines. That's interesting, but playing the 2 big Sisus, I guess, kind of makes a little more sense with it. Not sure how much I agree with it, but at the end of the day, he took first place, and I'm sitting in a chair in my bedroom. So what do I know? I will give him his props, and maybe I should look into it, especially seeing that it's only $13. Last time I looked at the card, it was like $25. So maybe I go pick up some Sisus just so I have them if I decide to play them ever, regardless of which deck. This ain't about me, though. 4 Brawls, 4 Friends, 4 Prep, 4 Castle. So the things that stand out, I guess, with their list is the 8 1-drops. I'm perfectly fine with it. They all do the same thing. Chernabog's Followers and Brooms. I cannot believe how many people got on my case about playing Broom over Chernabog. I think they both have a lot of pros and cons that the other one doesn't have, but 90% of the time, it does not matter. They do the same thing. They draw you a card, and that is it. So I really don't mind seeing the 8 1-drops. I don't think you want to go over 8 1-drops in this deck, though, because you don't want to be too front-heavy. But into the Bucky format, you have your Chernabog, you have your Broom, you have your Sorceress, you can recycle your Rabbits. These are your ways you want to play these types of cards into the Bucky matchup, and then save like your Frenemy, Sisu, Castle playline for like the Sisu matchup and things like that, where you want to be more aggressive and don't care as much about the draw every single turn and replacing cards every single turn. Otherwise, over that, it's pretty much just the Sisu, the big one, that stands out. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much right on par with what we're used to seeing. Overall, congratulations. I think the deck list is super solid. Let's go into the top 4 Steel Song deck list, piloted by Chris Oyola. Again, Sorry if I butcher names. I have always been horrible at that. So we see 4 Cinderellas on 1, 3 golden harps. Harp is becoming a big thing, I guess. It was a little odd to see it pop up a couple weeks ago, and then it just seems like it's popping up more and more and more. So you don't necessarily play this card on 1 because it's just going to get banished, but you come back with it later, and you're playing songs every turn. It quests for 2, and it has 4 willpower. Makes sense. Speeds the deck up, helps you into Sisu, which was a bad matchup, and it makes perfect sense. You get turn 1, you do something else like Robin Hood, yada, 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 whatever you want. Turn 2, turn 3, once you get to that point where, or if you hit Cinderella on 1, then you can come back with Harp on 2, sing Bare Necessities, hit that 1 jump ahead out of their hand. You played a song, your harp sticks around. So you can go ahead and play it out like that or however you wish. 4 Robin Hood, 4 Smees, 3 Piglets. So this is a very aggressive Steel Song list with 3 harps, 3 Piglets, and 4 Smees. This is very aggressive for Steel Song. But again, you play the Robin Hood shift line. So you have that there. Ursula the Singer, 4 costs. Ariel the Singer. Lawrence. Why Lawrence? People wonder why. This just means that Ruby Amethyst can't get greedy with their Sisu. Like, their Sisu can't just stick around and quest for 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 because it has 6 strength, and it's just going to, kill whatever swings into it, and you got to swing multiple characters because the 4 defense. Lawrence, when he has no damage, has 4 attack. So Lawrence is just able to trade with that Sisu really nicely and not let Ruby Amethyst jump out ahead on you. We've seen Argus get played, especially in blue steel. The 1 defense, though, sometimes it just comes back to get you. Whereas if with Lawrence, if they put damage on him, he does lose his strength, but he still quests for 2 and has 4 willpower. Rapunzel also being able to heal him can work out very nicely. So 2 Robin Hoods, 2 Perditas. So Perdita almost did it again. Man, I really got to eat a crow on that one. I said this card wasn't going to be good this format. Well, I was wrong. I will say it right now. Or this was just a crazy pilot and he really knew what he was doing and the card still isn't that great, but he just overcame a lackluster card with just fantastic piloting because he's so smart. That or I'm wrong. I'll let you guys decide. I'm okay if I'm wrong. And we saw 2 big Cinderellas in those final character spots. 3 Bare Necessities, 4 Storm, 4 Strengths, 1 Greatest Criminal Mind, 2 Zeus, 4 Whole New Worlds, and 1 Grab Your Swords. Aside from being a little light on the Grab Your Swords, the song lineup looks like the normal Steel Song lineup that we see. So overall, the list doesn't look too terrible. It's kind of the standard how the beginning of the format Steel Song was going to be, except they put Piglet and Golden Harp in there in addition to Smee to really speed this deck up. I like it. I think it was a great call because you get an aggro-esque aspect out of a more control mid-range deck, and I've been saying it all format. Like, an aggro deck in the right place, the right time is going to just dog walk people. My 7-year-old, well, if he was a little more experienced, I was watching his games, and he might have been able to go undefeated in our set championship had he just had the knowledge of how to play verse certain decks. We just set him up with Lemon Lime, Hyper Aggro, and it was kind of just turn cards, don't worry about your opponent. We only had a few days to test and get them ready for it, the mechanics, and it was, go ahead, do this. This is what you want to do. You want to see Piglet, Merfolk. You want to see Bodyguard. You want to see Lilo, things like that. And then after, like now, we get a few months before next set championships, and, well, probably a few weeks before we go back to a local, so we're going to go ahead and work on sequencing now. And now that he's got his toes into the game in a high-pressure environment, we're going to try to work on sequencing and how to mulligan for different matchups, not just this is what you want. And I'm pretty excited to see where it went or where it goes. Anyway, this list, I really like it. It's pretty, like I said, standard, except sped up to a degree. However, Chris Croy, this list is anything but standard. 4 Hoods, 4 Queens. I thought you said it wasn't standard. 4 Ursulas, 4 Ariels. I thought you said it wasn't standard. 4 Baloo. I thought you... Wait, 4 Baloo. Huh. Okay. We see the Lawrence in there as well. 4 Rapunzel, Hood and Queen, and then 3 Tinkerbell. I love Tinkerbell this format. Personally, can't say anything else about it. When I first saw Baloo on stream, I was like, there's no way he's on Pride Lands and Flute too. We see it's just the 4 flutes, but Baloo. So why play Baloo? Von Bruenwald, the 8th. It's a bodyguard, and he gets you 2 lore when he's banished. But more importantly, he protects your singers for an extra turn. He protects your low-cost characters for an extra turn. And it gets you that 2 lore in the process. Or you put him down, and as you're doing your other things, you could even crash him if you need to self-sacrifice him to get that 2 lore. The card actually makes a lot of sense. Personally, I wouldn't have thought it in the deck, but it does make a lot of sense. And if you get out your big queen, you can do the +4, -4 with him, and he'll still take out most of their characters, and you can just use him to challenge and just quest with your queen, and then your Baloo stays safe. So essentially you get your queen out, your Baloo out. Queen turns sideways, gets you 2 lore, their character down 4, Baloo goes up to 4, Baloo takes out their character, probably takes no damage, now he's exerted, protects your queen. If they take him out, you get 2 lore. It's a pretty rough combo to get over. The songs though, Steel Song, only 17. 3 Storm Rage On, 3 World's Greatest Criminal Minds, 4 Zeus, 4 Worlds, and 3 Grab Your Swords. No Strength of the Raging Fire. It's interesting. In a lot of decks where I'm playing Steel and Songs, I have cut Strength of the Raging Fire down to like 2 or 3. Certain decks, I guess, I did play 0. Like Brooms, I would just play the 4 Friends, 4 Storm Rage On, no Strength. But usually in Steel Song, you see it in there to a degree. Pretty interesting to see it coming out of here. I like it though. We saw in, was it Chicago, where Biven's really innovated this deck, and we saw 1 Bare Necessities. We saw 2 Cinderella Ballroom Sensations, which a lot of people thought was crazy, and using more World's Greatest Criminal Minds with the queen, kind of like the older builds, and everyone was like, wow, like, and putting in, was it Ursula or Piglet, and or we saw back and forth between Ursula and Piglet in that 2-drop spot, and he innovated this deck, and it started to see a rise in popularity. Well, maybe people were starting to figure it out, and that's what Chris thought, so he went and took it a step further, and he got ahead of the game again. So people are playing Steel Song this way. People know that now. They're going to get ready for it. I'm going to change it up again and do this. People aren't ready for it. They're not ready for Baloo. I don't know if that's exactly what he was thinking, but it worked, and very, very close to winning the entire thing. So congratulations to all these players. Congratulations to everybody else. I just have one question. 2 out of 3 or 2-game format? What do you guys prefer? Because, well, I've been called a lot of nasty things for saying 2-game format isn't that bad, but at the end of the day, I still stand by it. I like both formats, and I will play either format. They both have flaws. They both have good things going for them. What do you guys prefer? Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, take care.